for us and how. And I remember at 8 years old, looking at those people and saying, I want to be like that when I grow up. And I am. I have mentors that astonish me. And the people who amaze me most, because this is my passion, this is my major work as a thanatologist, a bereavement specialist, I work with parents who've lost their children to death. And they astound me. Sometimes I don't even know how they get out of bed in the morning, but they do. And I know, as someone who's grieving the loss of my beloved John, there are days where I don't think I could do one more day without him, and then I do. And these people do that too. They are so supportive of one another, and that's what I think the beauty is of people experiences. When I work with cancer patients too, it's the same thing. They're just amazing. And this kind of courage that I'm talking about, for example, I think the best example I can give you, because I'm obsessed with the situation right now, is what's going on in the Ukraine. That's what my childhood looked like. Only they had it worse than us because they're invaded. We were invaded from the air. We had 2,000 bombs dropped a night there. But even so, as dreadful as that was, and those of us who were taken away from our families and then put back, still saw this incredible courage of people, regular people, taxi drivers, milk people who delivered milk. They used to do that then, you know, would become firefighters, who would taxi drivers who would become ambulances. I mean, when I think of my childhood, I am just astonished with the things that I saw and the things that I heard. And these things are a result of major challenges. You know, if you go to my website, you'll see a list of my podcasts. And one, if you're interested at all, is by Wendy Lavin. And Wendy Lavin, also a Brit, she came here and her only child was murdered. And her courage and her, I don't know how to say it sometimes, her life, her liveliness is just incredible, how she will reach out to other people. So I see courage everywhere. People who decide to make a difference. What I've heard from all of you tonight, to me, that's courage and resilience. You know, one of the things I developed when I was a child in that war was what we call a watch me personality. And that means you tell me I can't do something and watch me. And I hear that here. I hear that from you, those of you who've spoken, because one of my friends, I don't know if you can see this, but one of my friends bought me this for my birthday. He said, they told me I couldn't, so I did. So I have that reputation, and my nickname is Queenager. I sound like the Queen and behave like a teenager, which I think is a lot of fun. And so, believe it or not, with all these things that I work with and the people that I absolutely love for all the things that they're going through, humor is very, very important. I work with cancer patients. I volunteer, excuse me, twice a month with a place called Gilda's Club, which is named for Gilda Radner, who died young from ovarian cancer. And it's called Laughing When Nothing Seems Funny and When It Is. And isn't that life? It really is. You never laugh at, you always laugh with. And along with laughter, there's music. Those two things, and I work with the addictions patients, those two things are primary. So when I think about all the things that I have grown through, and I say that because everything in my life that's caused me distress, I've learned a lesson. I've also learned that I don't know how you feel if I haven't gone through what you've gone through. And so, as well as I know bereaved parents, and I've worked with them since 1974, that length of time, I have a rough idea, but I don't know how they feel, and I'm grateful for that. And I'm writing a little book now called What Not to Say. Like, I know how you feel when you don't. And you'd be surprised at the stupid things people say to people in grief. I mean, after all these years, I'm stunned when I hear some of the things. So then moving along, I am a recovered codependent. I'm sure you know what that means. Oh my Lord. My mother was a raging codependent, so I learned that very well. And because of codependency, I was married for 25 years to a narcissist. Anyone not know what a narcissist is? Just Google them and you'll know right away. And because I was codependent and he was a narcissist, he decided we would come to America. I didn't want to leave home. I didn't leave everybody I've known all my life. I had 4 little children, 11 years down to 13 months. So he came ahead of me and I came over afterwards, having sold the house by myself, packed the children up and so on. And what I did was landed here in Philadelphia with lies. He had nothing ready for us at all, where to live, what to do, nothing. And so what I learned in that period of time, and I'm not going to dwell on it because I'm writing my life story, and I was telling my sons that I've written a book on a chapter on my marriage. Would you like to hear it? Chapter on my marriage. I was married to a narcissist for 25 years. That's it. That's the whole chapter. I'm not giving him the time of day. He's moved on now. But what I learned was my resilience with everything I went through with 4 little children and no car, living in Philadelphia. I remember running down the streets because I didn't know where there was a doctor because my 13-month-old baby was having a raging temperature and there was no one to help. And what I learned was I am not strong, but I have a lot of strengths. You know, if people say they're strong, people don't reach out to them because they think they're so strong. And I would think to myself sometimes, where's my shoulder to cry on? Well, why would anyone give me a shoulder? I was so strong. I want you to think about your strengths. They're enormous. People in the recovering community are rarely asked this question, but I ask that question, what are your strengths? And they are amazed at some of the things that they come up with themselves about their strengths. So I'm a writer and I love words, and there's certain words I don't like. Strong's not one of them. My worst curse word is stupid. With veterans, I hear other curse words. Every other word actually is a curse word. And I ask them, would you like me to buy you a dictionary? Because there are other words, you know, that you can use other than that word. The only 4-letter F word I like is fine. How do you feel? Fine. Now, if any of you can read faces, you know damn well they're all lying. So one has to poke around in there. You know how you have to do that. And I was going to tell Andrea the story, a birth story. It's very quick, but it was my first child, my first baby, who is now 63. I had her when I was 2. And so in England at that time, you had to go to hospital for the 1st and 5th babies. I don't know why. I had a miscarriage between the 3rd and 4th. So actually the 4th was the 5th. And I lied. I just waited until the midwife had to deliver at home. And I'm running down the stairs with everything. Anyway, the 1st. So I was in King's College Hospital in London, and it certainly wasn't like maternity communities here. It was head to head in the labor delivery room. So I had a woman behind me, her head was where mine was. And she was screaming and carrying on alarmingly. And a young doctor came in and said, what is all this noise about? It can't be that bad. And then sailed out again. Well, finally she delivered. And he came back again and said to her, you see, aren't you ashamed of your behavior? She got off that bed and socked him and knocked him right out on the floor. Yes. And the nurses are going all around him because he was one of those. But I will never forget that woman. And I was laughing so hard that my oldest daughter popped right out because it was so funny. So when I talk about resilience, I'm talking about humor too. And the miracle happened in 1978, I think it was, that I was in a part of my house and my husband came in and said, it's our 25th wedding anniversary. What would you like? Well, he'd never given me anything. And I swear, as I'm sitting here, this is the God's honest truth, I said, I'd like a divorce, please. Boom. And that's when I started living. Because I made a decision. You know, I have mentors who amaze me. One of them, the particular one, is a man called Dr. Viktor Frankl. And he wrote an astonishing book called Man's Search for Meaning. When I first came to this country, I was so homesick. I was dangerously homesick. And were it not for my 4 children, I don't know what I might have done. And my oldest daughter was telling a friend how sad her mother was. And the mother of this child came over to see me and said, I want you to read this book. And I said, I'm not reading it. So she went away and came back the next week and said, I want you to read this book. And I said, Came back the 3rd week and said, I'm not leaving until you read this book. This book, Man's Search for Meaning, changed my life. And I would go so far to say it actually saved it. Because he wrote things in this book like, people make conscious decisions on the way they feel. I didn't know that. I didn't know I had control over my feelings, my emotions. And then he said, they can do anything to my body, but they cannot touch my thoughts. He wrote that in Auschwitz concentration camp. He'd been in Buchenwald. The United States had given him a visa, but not his wife, not his mother, father, brother. So he decided to stay there. They all perished. She in Auschwitz and the others in other camps. But when he could say that, I was breathtaking. And one of the things that I realized was that entire book was all about choice. And I'll tell you one favorite story of mine in that book, which says how simple choice is. He was laying railroad tracks in Auschwitz, and you know that when it's bitterly cold, your skin will stick to steel or iron. And he had holes in the glove, holes in his shoes, and he's laying these tracks. And all of a sudden, a little brown bird flew down and landed on the track and looked up with her big eyes. And he chose to believe that was the soul and the spirit of his wife. He could have said, that's just a bird, but he didn't. He chose that and he went on another day. And his story is so amazing, and his logotherapy is astonishing. And when I used to volunteer at Greaterford Prison, and they used to let me out, which was nice, used to go to Greaterford Prison, a major penitentiary, I bought a dozen of those books to put it in the library because he was in prison too. And the letters I got from some of those men was amazing for what they got from that little book. He was sold something like, I don't know, 30 million copies. So I still have one, the original that I had in 1968 when I came to this country. It's still in my briefcase. I carry it everywhere. And then I have one that he autographed. There was a young nurse once that said, I follow you wherever you go. And it doesn't matter what subject you're talking about, you always bring Viktor Frankl in. And I said, well, he's right here. And she said, well, why don't you go and visit him? He's in Vienna. So I thought, So I sat on the bed one day. I'd lost my voice and my children were thrilled. So I was on the bed with all my journals for the next 4 years. And I thought, I'm going to go. My voice came back and I called to speak to whoever makes all these appointments. And he answered the phone. He said, Viktor Frankl. And when I'm excited, I sound like a chipmunk. And I'm going, oh my God, I can't believe it's you. You've no idea the effect you've had. Blah, blah, blah. And he said, I can't understand English quite that fast. So talk to me. And for 15 amazing minutes of my life that I will never forget, I listened to this man. And he told me one of the reasons that he stayed, apart from his family not being allowed to come to this country, was that he went to visit his father, what was left of his house. And he climbed over the rubble, and his father was sitting in what was the sitting room with 2 pieces of marble on the coffee table. And he said, what's that? And his father said, well, I traveled through all the synagogues today that were blasted, and I found these pieces of marble. And they were from the 10 Commandments. Honor thy father and thy mother. And at that point, he told me, there was no way he's going to leave them. That courage still today gives me chills when I think about it. And so people often say to me, why do you do what you do? I mean, it must really be morbid. Not at all. If I'm addicted to anything apart from soccer and Harry Potter, it's courage. And when I work with veterans and hear of them, they've made me an honorary veteran, and there's a group called FRAT, which is First Responders, Army, etc. They call me the Queen of FRAT, so I have all these marvelous honors in my life. And I listen to them, and I tell them about Viktor Frankl, and it's just astonishing, the things that they say and the things that they do for one another. That is courage. My bereavement patients blow me away. That's all I can say. Their courage, their tenacity, their resilience is amazing. And I heard that in those of you that shared, because it's not that challenging. Like, there's nothing hard or difficult in my life. Everything is a challenge, as it is in yours. And so we rise to the challenge. That's what we do. Do I have days when I don't want to get out of bed? You bet. But after John, I was his care sharer for 10 years. He had 3 cancers, and he'd been in the Royal Navy. Blonde, blue-eyed, out in the sun too much, so lots of cancer. And I remember just sitting with him as a care sharer that time and listening to his courage. And this is how it came through from him. So what was it like being in combat at 17? Oh, great fun. Great fun. That's what he would say to everything. That's how he dealt with things. So it's important that people are allowed to do it in their own way. This is what I say about grief. Do it your way. Don't let anyone else tell you. I say the same thing about aging. I'm 88 now, and I am 88 and I am alive and I am resilient because I do not listen to people who tell me what I should and shouldn't, could and couldn't do at my age. You make sure that you do not. This is a country of labels. It drives me bonkers. Like, there's the terrible twos and the awful teens and the midlife crisis. It's like, come on. How about human beings? Or, as Ogmandino called us, human becomings, which I love. So here I was, and here I am, going through all this marvelous thing. And it's amazing. I believe in miracles. Without doubt, I believe in miracles. And one of them was, I was asked to speak at a union meeting. I don't know which union it was, in Philadelphia at a big hospital. And the main speaker was a man who, unfortunately, we didn't know, but he was a drug addict. And when he was supposed to present, he was high as a kite. And he couldn't. So I'm just sitting there waiting. All of a sudden they're yelling, "Is Dr. Kaye here?" So I go belting down there and speak. And in the audience was a woman who, her job was looking for speakers, national, international speakers. And she went back, apparently, she told me, to her group and said, never mind about him, have I got a speaker for you? Who knew? Never give up. And so I went on this amazing journey of speaking all over the country and internationally. And it was so powerful because listening to all of you, you all have a message the world needs to hear right now, more than ever, especially as women, more than ever. We have to be heard. And so when I get an opportunity like this to share the things that I have grown through, and I say grown through, not endured, because I learned a lot. When I've gone through those things and I can share them and encourage other people, especially women. I love working with women, especially to follow your bliss. My bliss, I've got a lot of blisses, come to think of it. When people ask me why I do what I do, and they say it's morbid, I said before, why you do it? And I say it's the war. I learned so much in the war. We had a little dog called Brownie, very creative because he was brown. So I guess that's why they called him Brownie. 20 minutes before each raid, he would cry and run under the table. So we knew when the Luftwaffe was coming, especially the V2 bomb. The V2 bomb was a later invention that you would hear the plane and then you would hear silence. And then you'd hear a whistle and then you'd hear boom. And the house would shake. And so Brownie used to warn us, and we get down in the cellar. My mother would not go to air raid shelters. I don't know why. And that was so remarkable. A little thing like that. The memories that I have for that time don't make me sad. They make my heart ache, especially when I look at what's going on with the current Russian Hitler in the Ukraine. I never thought I'd live to see another Hitler, but there he is. And so any other evacuee, because I was evacuated 3 times, taken away 3 times, any other evacuees, some of whom I'm in touch with all over the world, we would like to go to the Ukraine. That's how we feel. Now we can't go because we'd be in the way, but we have that feeling, that identification, you know. We absolutely know what that's like, to be terrified, to not knowing what's going to happen. And seeing some of your little friends killed, and just things that made me who I am today. No question. I owe everything to the people in that war. And to these miracle people that come into my life, Viktor Frankl, Dame Cicely Saunders, who was the founder of hospice in England. She trained me. Can you believe it? She trained me when I was 18 years old. Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross on death and dying, who taught me everything I know. What a spitfire. I don't think she brushed 5 feet. And that woman was all energy and incredible resilience. The psychiatrists in this country put her through hell because she thought that cancer patients had a right to speak and express their feelings. What a sin. So I have learned through these extraordinary people, and there are many, many others, extraordinary people, mainly the people who've come to me for help. I owe them so much because they trust me. When the veterans trust me, that is something that just takes my breath away. I don't know if I would have trusted me had I been in Vietnam. I don't know, or been in Afghanistan or Iraq or wherever. And because they were, in other words, a kind of perpetrators, they were the ones that bombed there, and I was the bombee, so to speak. They've just taken me into their hearts. And what an honor, what an incredible honor that I feel being their queenager. It's nice, sound like the queen, behave like a teenager, why not? I don't know how much time I have. How much time do I have, Ginny? Do I
You're
have
right
any?
at 8:30.
Oh, so when do I stop? 8:31?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I will close with this statement that I believe in you, every single one of you that can achieve whatever you choose. And I'd like to read something that I read every single day for myself and read to my addictive community every time I see them. It's called A Medicine Woman's Prayer. I will not rescue you, for you are not powerless. I will not fix you because you are not broken. I will not heal you, for I see in you your wholeness. I will walk with you through the darkness as you remember your light. And I believe, as I say to everybody when I speak, I believe in every one of you that you can achieve whatever you choose. And thank you for inviting me, Ginny. It's such an honor. And thank you for listening.